Welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we keep leadership practical and real. Just a quick reminder, we're focusing on building sustainable influence. I'm Scott, and as always, I'm here with our go-to leadership expert, Dr. Michael David Morales, aka Mo.
What's up, Scotty? It's good to be on, man. Let's do it.
So today we are talking about what it means to lead through change. And I honestly couldn't think of a better example than Coach Herman Boone. So if you don't recognize that name, that is the name of the coach from Remember the Titans. So a great film that I'm definitely going to spoil today, but it's been out for a while, so I don't feel quite as bad about spoiling it. But if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, I'm going to say that ahead of time. Please go watch it. But in 1971, a town was torn by racial tension. Boone was a black coach and was chosen to lead a newly integrated high school football team. So his appointment alone sparked a ton of outrage. Players didn't trust each other, the coaching staff was divided, and the community was watching, ready to see him fail and almost hoping that he did. But Boone didn't flinch. From day one, he set the tone that it will not be a team of black and white, that it will be one team. Through love, or I should say through tough love, discipline, and unwavering sense of fairness, he began to earn the players and coaches and town's respect. And then came training camp. So Boone forced every player to room with someone of another race and get to know them on a deeper level. And it eventually does work. So obviously there's some tension to begin with, some fights, things like that. So actually work. And through shared struggle and really awkward and uncomfortable conversations, barriers start to break down and trust starts to build between the players. But what really makes Boone's leadership so powerful is that he doesn't do it alone. He brings along Coach Yost. And Coach Yost was the white coach that Coach Boone replaced. And the two of them, despite their differences, learned to lead together. They put the team's success above ego, above politics, and above public opinion. Boone holds every player to the same high standard, never wavering from what he believes is right, even when the pressure is intense. So by the end of the season, the Titans are undefeated, not just on the field and on the scoreboard, but also in spirit. So the most notorious scene, right? People recreated it after the film came out, but that dance that they do to come out, just signifying that they are together and unified as one team. But they not only become that on the field, they also become a symbol of unity in a divided community. So Boone's leadership is tough. It's bold and it's absolutely full of heart. And his story shows us that leading through change isn't about being popular or playing it safe, but it's about standing firm, leading, not managing, and being adaptable. So leaders don't just endure change, they guide others through it. So, Mo, let's break this down for our listeners. Let's get into these two key principles that we have today. Every leader should understand when it comes to leading through change.
What a great movie. You know, the difference between Denzel Washington and Tom Cruise, who are both huge movie stars, is that when Tom Cruise plays in a movie or acts in a movie, he's always Tom Cruise. He's always good, but he's always Tom Cruise. Denzel Washington, when he plays a role, he's Denzel Washington, but he's also the role, and you believe it. I literally watched two completely different genre Denzel Washington movies in the past week, so I've been on my Denzel kick. I get on a Denzel kick once every couple of years or so, and it never disappoints, right? Man, leading through change is so tough, and leaders, the only thing that's constant in leadership is change. Cliche, yeah, but it's so true. If you are leading in an organization, if you are leading a couple of people in some cubicles, or you are out on the field, or you are running the kids soccer program on Tuesday nights, the only thing that's going to be the same in your life as a leader is change. There's always going to be something happen. So what are you doing to make sure that the change that you are going through is not just happening, but that you manage it well? Now, remember, leaders lead people and they manage numbers or they manage things. I know that's been said 100 different ways by 100 different people. We lead people and we manage things. How much change have we seen over the years in our healthcare system? I'm not talking politically. I think about an actual healthcare system overhaul in a Cleveland clinic. And when the Cleveland Clinic began shifting from volume-based care to value-based care, the CEO at the time was a guy named Toby Cosgrove, and he decided not just to change the metrics, which is managing, but he reshaped the entire organizational culture. Now, Scotty, you know I am a culture guy. What this CEO did, what Toby did, is he said, we are going to have what's called patient-centered units. We are going to focus on the patient first, and he insisted that all the employees, even the surgeons, refer to their patients as customers. Now, you take a whole different look at somebody when you think of them as a customer. And so here's the takeaway for that. Toby just didn't manage process updates, which happen all the time. He cast an entire new vision. And so it was important for him to help his staff understand the importance of healing and to rehumanize the patient, which is now the customer. So, leaders, here's the lesson for us based on this CEO. We need to build urgency by connecting change to purpose. So my first question for you today is, are you connecting the change that's happening in your organization to purpose? What is your purpose? What's the purpose of your company? And how are you going to improve the outcomes of whatever you're in charge of?
I think change can be such a scary thing for so many people. And I can't tell you the number of times that I have talked to, I mean, regardless, right? Like coaches, administrators, students, coworkers, whoever it may be, people are always so quick to say, I hate change. I wish change never happened. But one of my favorite quotes, and it's change is inevitable. Change is always happening. Things are always adapting. And whether, like you said, right, Cleveland Clinic, treating someone as a customer rather than thinking of them as a patient, creating that whole culture shift, that whole change, regardless is if he had done that, right, someone else would have come in with a different idea and changed things as
Right.
well. And so it's just interesting too when we think about leadership and we think about having to adapt to situations and we think about having to face change. You can't lead if you're not prepared to face change. And you can't lead if you don't understand that change is going to happen whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and leading is about getting in front of the trends. So think about Netflix, right? Talk about change in an industry. Would you have ever thought that Blockbuster was ever going away ever? No, but they did not embrace change the way that Netflix did. And so Netflix made a very controversial shift in that time from DVD rentals to streaming. And people thought, you are nuts. This is way too risky. But their CEO, a guy named Reed Hastings, said, no, this is where the industry is going. And this is where we're going to be so that when it happens, we're ready. But what did Hastings do? He just didn't make the change. He said, look, let's educate customers. Let's over communicate and let people know this is where it's going. And let's be laser focused on the why behind the change that we're doing, which is accessibility, speed, and innovation. And so he didn't wait for the demand. Here's the cool thing. He created the demand. He saw where it was going and he got in front of it. So the lesson for that, Scott, I think within change, to your point, is that change leadership requires us to anticipate and have courage. Leaders, are you having courage in the space that you're in? Are you willing to buck the trends and get in front of where you know your company should be going? How do you do that? You have to be educated. You always have to be reading and getting ahead of your people and thinking, what do my people, what does my industry need?
But just thinking too about that process of Netflix jumping on streaming and thinking about how many streaming apps there are right now that people at this point are like, man, I wish there was one app that had all of the streaming apps just within it so I wouldn't have to buy all these separate plans, which is kind of just like having cable, right? But it's so interesting to see how quickly that progressed. I mean, I remember being a freshman in college when Netflix was just doing DVD. And
Yeah.
I am definitely old, but overall, that wasn't that long ago. And so just to see the change and the need that they saw, the direction that they push things, and how all of these other industries have said that was dumb, but are now, jumping on board with streaming is just absolutely it's an astonishing change.
Leaders, you've got to get in front of change so that not only you can be successful, but that the company can be successful because that's job security.
Well, I know we kind of have like a book that we're going to hit on today, and I think it's by John Kotter, Leading Change. So, can you tell us a little bit more how that kind of connects back to everything?
Yeah, in fact, our second point today, which is about adaptability being a leadership superpower, is really what Kotter talks about. In fact, in Leading Change, Kotter says that it's about generating short-term wins. A lot of us are looking towards the very end goal. And one of my favorite sayings, Scotty, and you've probably heard it before, and I say it to every single one of my student athletes, is don't forget the journey for the destination. It doesn't matter how long or short a season is. For a student athlete, it's grueling. It could be 2 months, it could be 4 months. And that's why we as leaders need to generate short-term wins. So if you're in an office, how do you get your people to understand we're on the way to getting the big thing done over the next several months? But here are the benchmarks. Here are the checkpoints along that route. If you've ever gone cross country, like my family used to do when I was a kid, we didn't have iPads and phones and all this stuff. We had comic books and crossword puzzles. And so what me and my brother used to do is we used to look at the markers on the road. And does it seem boring? Yeah, but we probably saw a lot more of the country than most kids do today, because I would assume they're just kind of looking at their screens. But what are those markers, leaders? Because the journey is long and you don't want your people to fall off or get bored or whatever. So how do you do that? You celebrate progress, even if it's small, especially if it's small. Teams are going to gain confidence when they see traction, but you have to help them see that traction. You see the big picture, because when you're guiding your team through any kind of overhaul, you need to make sure that each milestone is maintainable and that you keep morale up, or your people are just going to get exhausted and they're going to burn out. And Scotty, you know how I feel about burnout.
Burnout is a leadership problem. That's
You
what
got
Mel
it.
always says.
Booyah.
It definitely is interesting to think about in that aspect, and I think so often too we do look towards kind of the end goal. We look towards that big prize, that shiny prize at the end, and I even think of it in the medical world, right? Like if you have someone who, we'll just say tears their ACL, you're looking at a lengthy recovery. And for the most part, people are like looking for that. When do I get to get back on the field? But there's so much to celebrate in between that, from, hey, you can move your leg again, or hey, you have muscle tone back, or hey, you can walk without support. And so it's translates so well into the business world, really, of just making sure that you don't just celebrate those big wins for your company or your organization, whatever it is, but celebrating individuals, celebrating small victories, whatever it may be. And it even makes me think a little bit about The Office. Office maybe is not the most great leadership organization ever, but you get Michael Scott, who celebrates maybe too much, but celebrates all the small things throughout the series. It doesn't matter what it is. He's happy. He's excited for his employees. And so really kind of taking that mentality into that workplace is just, and not really forgetting about those little things, is so critical.
Talk about adaptability. Michael Scott is prime when it comes to that. Everything goes wrong, and it's usually because he's done something to make it go wrong, but he's adaptable. And even though his leadership
Hmm.
style and his management style is unconventional at best and cringy at worst, sometimes, like with the Scott's Tots episode, he is always adaptable.
Yeah, I hate that
Adaptable.
episode.
Remember back during COVID and in 2020, right before everything shut down, Target, which is wonderful, I love Target, it was really reliant on in-store sales, as a lot of businesses were. But as soon as the foot traffic stopped, because the whole world shut down, almost overnight, they expanded their curbside pickup, their same day delivery, and even the way that they used app integration really not just saved them, but let them thrive through that time. Leadership is about knowing something before the crisis happens, or as it happens. Scotty, we were talking about surfing right before we came on. But I would bet, for somebody
Mhm.
who's surfed his whole life, that you can spot a wave in your surfing life.
There is a trick to being able to look out and see it forming before it's right in front of you, and getting really kind of used to that process, and understanding how waves work, how water works, so that when you look out, you can tell the difference between something that's going to be something that you might want to try to paddle into, or something that you're just going to go right over.
If you and I were out catching waves together, I can't see those things because I'm not a good surfer. I've surfed a handful of times in my life. I can't look 2 or 3 waves out into the ocean and see it forming. By the time I try to get in front of it, I'm already behind it. Because you can see something forming, you can literally, in the surfing case, get in front of the wave. You catch that wave and you turn a crisis into something incredible. That's what the best surfers do, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong, and to go kind of even more into that, if you wait too long and you don't see where you're at within where the wave's at, you could end up nosediving, you could end up getting pummeled, you could end up just being too far back. All sorts of things can happen when you're not able to anticipate and or see the wave ahead of time.
And that's my point, and that's the lesson for us, is that leaders who embrace change before it's forced, which ends up in the nosedive, whether you're on the wave or you're in the office, but when you get in front of it and you know what to do and you position yourself, when the moment arrives, that's when the good things happen. So leaders, adaptability favors the prepared. What are you doing to prepare yourself and your team for the crises that are they're inevitably going to come up? The question is, are you going to be ready for them? Are you ready to adapt when those things come?
I feel like we could just end right there, but Mo, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off today? Anything else you just want to, dot 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 and add into that final statement there?
Yeah, I would just say this, Scotty. When we're talking about leading through change, too many leaders think, I'm just going to deal with it when it happens. I'm pretty good at what I do. I've been in the copy machine fixing business for 20 years, and I've got some guys that kind of look to me. But there's going to be a crisis, whether you're fixing copy machines, catching waves, or if you are running some kind of IMCA or giving time to your community, whatever it is. So leaders, think about this. When we are thinking about leading through change, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. If change is inevitable, the way that you respond is a choice. Leaders don't just react to the temperature of the room, they set it. If you want your team to stay calm, focused, and forward thinking, especially during transition, then it starts with you. So again, be the thermostat, not the thermometer.
Well, thank you so much for listening today, everybody, and riding the wave of leadership with us. We really
Love
appreciate
it.
you guys being here. And if you enjoyed the episode, take a second to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps push us into that algorithm so more folks can find the show. And don't forget to hit up rtclc.com to sign up for our monthly newsletter where we drop extra tips and insights you won't hear on this podcast, as well as you can find links to our other podcasts related to leadership that we have as well. So until next time, lead with purpose, stay authentic, and make an impact.